Welcome to this course on ChatGPT for accountants and bookkeepers. So I'm going to show you how we can use this extraordinary tool to save hours and hours of time, how we can use it to create better results in our accounting firm, how we can use it to add value to our clients, create more value. Anyway, I became fascinated by ChatGPT at the start of this year because when I stumbled across it, I realized it had the ability to completely transform the way that accounting firms work. It's going to have a major impact. It's having a major impact on the profession. And so I realized that this is something that we cannot ignore. This change in AI, that what's happened in 2023 is so extraordinary that we have to stay ahead of the curve. So let me talk a little bit about the background to AI and ChatGPT. And so very quickly, AI is nothing new. It's believed to have been around for something like 70 years. So AI, artificial intelligence, is not new. And it's been in the world around us in so many different ways. In recent years, for example, we see it built into things like Netflix, which recommends next things that we might like. It starts to analyze and understand our preferences. Apple have used it in things like face recognition. We have things like robots that can clean our floors. We have advanced driver aids in cars. And now, of course, we're moving towards driverless cars. We also know that, for example, the Da Vinci surgical system does better surgery than human beings, than the top surgeons. It's incredible what AI can do. So it's not new. It's been around for many, many years, but it's increasing now. It's at a huge rate of change. And really a lot of that has happened since November 2023. November 2022. November 2022, I think, will go down as the month where everything changed, the world changed. And what I mean by that is that that's when the public saw the release of ChatGPT version 3. Now, ChatGPT is a large language model. It's a form of AI. It was created by a company called OpenAI back in 2015. There were a number of founders who collectively invested $1 billion. Some of the most well-known ones are Sam Altman, Elon Musk, although Elon Musk left in 2018, citing problems with Tesla he had to focus on at the time. But really, there were some differences of opinion. Anyway, OpenAI released ChatGPT 3 to the public in November 2022. And that took the world by storm. It was the fastest platform to ever get to 100 million users, thrashing the record of TikTok. In January of 2023, Microsoft invested $10 billion in ChatGPT because it could see the potential of it and it wants to build it into Bing. Then in March 2023, OpenAI released ChatGPT version 4. And we'll talk about that later on in the course. And that, of course, then started a huge panic because Google then realized they had a big problem. If Bing, which we thought was a dinosaur, was suddenly being enhanced by AI, by ChatGPT, Bing decided it better launch its Bard model pretty soon, which it did. And it launched it too early. It was a bit embarrassing at first. It made lots of mistakes. But we've seen there's been a huge increase in not just large language models, but all sorts of AI tools now for generating images, videos, and so on. If we stick with large language models, we saw Google working on Bard. We've seen that both Google and Amazon are investing heavily in another large language model called Claude by Anthropic. We saw in the summer of 2023, Meta launched Llama, their open source large language model. And then, as I'm recording this in November 2023, just last week, Apple made a big announcement. Apple have been extremely quiet in this space, but they have announced that they're going to be investing, I think it's $1 billion a year, developing their large language model. And the platform that they're building is going to be called Ajax. Strange name in the UK, that's a brand of floor cleaner. Anyway, Ajax will be the the model that powers their large language model. What the eventual name of that will be, we don't know. It could be Apple GPT, but I'm sure there'll be something more creative than that. Anyway, this is moving so incredibly fast, and it's in some respects very exciting. In some respects, it can be scary. There's been lots of doom mongers who've been saying that things like this is going to replace millions and millions of jobs. And certainly that's a very realistic possibility. And accountants and bookkeepers are right up there, because much of what we've done in the past with, for example, compliance work, that could disappear in the next 2 or 3 years. But one of the things I've often said is it's not AI that's going to replace us. It's not AI that's going to replace us. It's how our competitors are using AI. And what that means for you as an accounting firm is you need to make sure that you are ahead of the curve, because there are no doubt that many accountants and bookkeepers will find themselves out of work in the next few years with the pace of change. However, I believe this creates so many opportunities if we're willing to grasp those opportunities and use AI as a tool to get so much more stuff done and at a higher level. So why is it so powerful for us? Why do we need to invest time into ChatGPT? And in our business, for example, we're a team of 5, and 4 of us spend 1 day a week. Every Thursday is ChatGPT day, where the whole team is encouraged to research, learn, play around with ChatGPT. We spend an hour on a Zoom call to share what we've learned. Why? Because the time it's saving us is extraordinary. We'll get into the practical stuff later, but we can create things that so much faster than we ever could have done before. So experts think that 300 million jobs are going to be at risk. And the reason for that is that there are problems with humans. Humans have lots of flaws, as you perhaps know. Firstly, humans are extremely expensive. What I mean by that is if you were to hire a new person in your team, perhaps you want to hire some person to act as your social media and marketing manager, to write blog posts for you, to write social posts for you, to do marketing. Well, that could cost you easily $50,000, $100,000 we might be looking at. Or you could use ChatGPT. And there's currently a free account, which is pretty good. Or if you want all the bells and whistles, the pro account is just a measly $20 a month. That's it. It's extremely inexpensive compared to humans. Secondly, humans are unreliable. They're unreliable because they go home at night. And they go home for the weekend. They have vacations. Sometimes they're off sick. But AI is there 24/7 whenever you need access to it. And thirdly, humans are so slow. And when I say slow, I'm talking about relative to ChatGPT and AI. And we're going to see later on, I'm going to show you some practical use cases. You're going to see how fast it can do stuff. It could write an email for you that might take somebody, if it's a complicated email, it could take somebody half an hour to craft that email, and it could take ChatGPT 30 seconds. The magnitude of difference in speed is extraordinary. You're going to see that. But as I say, AI is a tool. It's not going to replace you if you use it in the right way. And I think of AI as think of it as your new hire. You think of it as your personal assistant. What AI will do for you, what ChatGPT will do for you is it's going to save you huge amounts of time. You will see that very, very soon. It's going to save you time. It's also going to save you money, because as you start to use it, the more you use it in your firm, the more you'll realize you need to hire less people, because we can use technology to do things that we used to hire people for. So it's got huge benefits. But let's also talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls, because we can't totally rely on AI. We can't totally rely on ChatGPT. It's not always perfect. And so here are the things that you need to be aware of with ChatGPT. Firstly, it's not always right. It's not always accurate. And that's because it suffers from human bias. So when OpenAI created it in the first place, and this is the same with all the large language models, whether it's Google's Bard, whether it's Claude's by Anthropic, they are all trained by humans. In the case of ChatGPT, it was trained in all the information that existed in the internet up until 2021. And that's extraordinary how much information it's got access to, but also it's not always right. We know that if we do a Google search, sometimes stuff is not right because it was created by humans. Even things like Wikipedia, it doesn't mean it's right because a human wrote that. Not only was the source material coming from humans, but also when the model was then trained, it was trained by humans. And so when it was trained by asking a series of questions. It would give an answer, and a human would then tell it whether it got the answer right or wrong. And sometimes the human might have been wrong in their assessment. So that's the first issue. It's not always right. We must be aware of that. It can get things wrong. And so, again, I say, think of it as your personal assistant or your new hire. Just like when you delegate a task to a human, it sometimes gets things wrong. Well, ChatGPT is the same. We have to be aware of that. And so we have to use some professional judgment. We also have to be careful about confidentiality and privacy. And I don't want to spend too long on that right now because actually it's pretty secure, is ChatGPT. But my advice would always be, perhaps when you enter things like data into ChatGPT, make it anonymous. Don't put client information in there. So it's common sense, really, client confidentiality. Another problem with ChatGPT is context retention. Now, what do I mean by that? One of the great things, the powerful things about ChatGPT is we have a conversation with it. We have a chat and we can ask a question. It can give us an answer. We can then ask another question, or we can ask it to expand on it. And unlike a Google search, for example, where each search that you do, it doesn't know what the previous one was. They're all standalone, isolated searches. With a large language model, a chat it remembers things. It remembers things. And that's really powerful because you can build on it. You can ask it to explain, clarify, do another task based on the first task. And so we can build up this conversation with it. And that means that one of the things we can do is we can tell it things at the outset and say, for example, I want you to write a series of blog posts for me, and my target clients are dentists. And then we can have a conversation. It could write many, many posts. But what might happen is eventually it will forget the first thing you said, that your target market is dentists, and it might start writing marketing material for other types of businesses. So it does forget things after a period of time. We have to be aware of that. Also, one of the things that's been reported several times, more so in the early parts of 2023, is it's not good at math. I saw a lot of comments on Facebook groups of accountants saying, it'll never replace us, it'll never do tax returns for us because it's not good at math. And that's sort of true. It's sort of true. Let me give you a quick example. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, what is 15.37 times 1867.2? That's quite a complex piece of calculation to do. And it would come back and say the product of 15.37 times 1867.2 is 28,707.264. Very confidently. I then put, are you sure? Because I got my calculator out being an accountant and I realized that wasn't quite right. And it said, I apologize for the mistake. Let me recalculate for you. And it does, and it comes up with a different answer. Now, I then got my calculator out, and that's still the wrong answer. So I then said, are you sure it isn't 28,698.864? And it said, I apologize for the confusion in my previous response. You are correct. The correct result of multiplying those two numbers is indeed that. Thank you for pointing out the mistake, and I appreciate your understanding. So in other words, and there's two issues here. So number one, it's not great at complex math, but it is pretty good at simple math. It's not great at complex math. But also we have to be careful because, and I'll come on to this point in a little while, but when it's wrong, it can be wrong in a very convincing way. It's convinced it's right. So we do have to check things. Now, going back to that particular complex math, there is actually ways that we can get it to come up with the right answer. And here's an example that I came across. I'm not sure how readable this is, but if we tell ChatGPT to think it through step by step, then what it will do is it will actually go through it in a series of different steps in its thinking. And when we're doing complex math, and it thinks about things step by step, it is much more likely to get the right answer. So we can change the way we create our prompts to get it to calculate stuff, complex stuff, correctly, but it's not foolproof. So ChatGPT is not great at, because it's a large language model, it's not great at complex math, but it's still pretty good at simple math. And we'll talk about it later in the course, but we now have access to something called advanced data analysis, and that is extremely good at complicated maths. So we can get around it with some of the other features inside ChatGPT. Another thing we have to be aware of is what's called hallucination. Hallucination means, and this is all large language models are susceptible to this, it means that sometimes it's wrong, but it's wrong in a way that's convincing. So we saw it with that example with the math. It's convinced it's got the right answer. And even when we say, "Are you sure?" it then comes up with something that says, "this is the right answer." And it's sometimes hard to spot that. Now, there was an interesting court case back in June 2023. If I just pull that up, there were a couple of articles here. What happened in June 2023, there was a court case and a firm of lawyers were preparing for a court case in the airline industry. And when you're in court, when you're a lawyer arguing in court, you cite previous cases. Now, in preparing for the court case, the lawyer who was preparing his material was going on, I think it was a vacation. And so he delegated to a member of the team in their firm of lawyers to do the research. And this team member had come across ChatGPT, so used ChatGPT to help do the research. The lawyer came back from vacation and was very impressed with the bundle of papers that he was given by his assistant with all of these cases, went to court, and as part of the arguments in court was citing these past cases. All was going well until the judge said, "I've not heard of that case before. What's that particular case?" And what they realized by the end of his arguments, that many of the cases that were being cited were made up, completely made up. And that is because ChatGPT hallucinated. So we have to be aware of that. And it's getting better. And of all of the tools, ChatGPT 4 has been shown to hallucinate less than Bard, for example. But it does sometimes get things wrong. So once again, we have to use our common sense. We have to use our professional judgment. We have to check things. And the final shortcoming I want to tell you about, and this is another important one, it's not up to date. It was trained in data up to November 2021. And interestingly, as I am recording this, Elon Musk has got back into the game again because he is launching his large language model, and he's going to be launching it to users of X, formerly Twitter. And one of the things that he says about his large language model is his is up to date because it has access to everything that's ever taken place on Twitter, or X as it's now called. And of course, a lot of people use X to get their news. People report the news. So he says it's up to date. Of course, we have that whole issue of human bias, and is our tweets accurate or not, or are they made up? So there's that whole other issue anyway. But interestingly, Elon Musk is citing that the good thing about his version is it's up to date because it's trained on Twitter. Anyway, going back to ChatGPT, people say things like, I saw in a webinar I did yesterday, somebody said, "Oh, I can't use ChatGPT for tax research because it's not up to date." Well, that's not quite true because it's continually being trained all the time. But not only that, is we can use various tools inside ChatGPT to access, for example, the internet or PDFs. So if you want to use it to help you understand complex tax legislation, you absolutely can do that. You just have to make sure you feed it the information first. And that's very easy to do now with the latest versions of ChatGPT. So let's talk about some of the practical things that you can do with ChatGPT. Because yes, there are some shortcomings, but when we use it for the right things, it can be extraordinary. So I'm going to give you a quick overview right now of some of the things that you can use it for, some of the things that I think it's brilliant at, and then in a very short time, we'll start going into some of these and showing you practically how you do them. So one of the things I love it for is ideation or brainstorming. Coming up with ideas. It's fantastic. If you want to come up with ideas for something, then ask it a question. Give me 10 ideas for a blog post I could write. Give me 5 ideas for how I could grow my accounting firm. Whatever it might well be, it's great for coming up with ideas. So if I'm looking for some ideas, whereas in the past I might have just sat down with a paper and pen, or I might have gone to Google, now my first port of call is I will go into ChatGPT. Second thing it's great for is research. Researching things, it's extraordinary. Just bear in mind the hallucination issue and that firm of lawyers researching court cases. Just be careful of that. Do double check things. But it's great for researching. That might be researching clients' industries. Perhaps you have a meeting tomorrow with a brand new client and they're a water jet cutting engineering business and you've never worked with a water jet engineering cutting business, you don't know anything about that type of industry, then ChatGPT can help you with the research to understand that particular type of client. You could use it for researching tax. With the caveat I said earlier, we have to feed it the information, give it some websites first. A third thing it's great at is content creation, creating content, particularly in the world of marketing. If you want to write blog posts, come up with content for YouTube videos, ebooks, and so on. If you want to come up with ideas for webinars, if you want to come up with ideas to create content, a research report for a client, creating any form of written content, it's very, very good at. Any form of text analysis, analyzing text, that's particularly what its strength is. It's a large language model. So in other words, with text analysis, you can give it some text, a PDF, for example, an article, and you could ask it to summarize it, for example. Like you could have a book summary. If you can't read the full book, it could summarize it. Or you could ask it to reword it in a different way, to explain a complex article and re-explain it in a way that's easy to understand by a child, for example. So analyzing text, summarizing things, it's extremely good at. It's also very good at data analysis. So we think of it as being a large language model and therefore it's good with text, obviously, but it's also good with numbers. Now, I mentioned earlier about it's not great at complex math, but it is still pretty good with numbers. And that means some of the things that we can do is we can feed it a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet. We can feed it a set of financial statements and ask it to analyze it. And it does a brilliant job. I'm going to show you exactly how you do it later on in the course. So text analysis, it's very good at. Sorry, data analysis, it's very good at as well. And another thing it's great at, but perhaps of less application to us is in accounting firms, but nevertheless, it's brilliant at coding. So coders use it a lot. And that might be you if you decide that you want to create some HTML code for a website, if you have some knowledge in that, for example. Or the other thing, more practical, is let's say you are building an Excel model and you want to create some macros. Well, if you've got some understanding in Excel, advanced Excel and macros, then ChatGPT is fantastic at helping you come up with the Visual Basic code, the code you want for your macros to do certain things in your Excel spreadsheets. So those are some of the things that it's really good for. And we're going to go deeper with even more examples soon, very, very soon. But think of it as your virtual assistant. It's somebody that you will just turn to for various tasks. And my top tip for you is use it as much as possible, because the more you use it, the more you'll start to see the potential. The more you'll find other great uses for it. I use it now every single day, every day, and I use it for pretty much everything I do, because every time I have a task to do, I ask myself the question, could I use ChatGPT to do this? How could ChatGPT to help me? And the more I use it, the better I am at figuring out the right prompts and how to get the best out of it. So let's talk about a few more quick use cases specifically for accountants. So in broad terms, it's great at data analysis, text analysis, ideation. More specifically, in our firms, we can use it for paraphrasing, summarizing new legislation. We can use it for customer support, things like writing emails. It's great, creating emails for our clients, either answering clients' emails if it's difficult ones. We can use it for creating template emails. We can use it to create systems. So, for example, you might want to create an onboarding system using ChatGPT to help you do that. We can use it for the hiring process. So if you're looking to hire new people, you can use it to help you write job descriptions, or to come up with the best questions to ask in the interview. You can use it to analyze and summarize CVs, for example. We can use it to write proposals. We can use it to write fixed price agreements and contracts. We can create templates for invoices. We can answer questions from business owners. We could use it to generate Python code to format our Excel files. Content marketing, it's brilliant at. We could use it to write, if we think about marketing, to write an ebook, for example. We could use it to write articles, blog posts, social media content. We could then use it to optimize SEO, which it's extremely good at. We can use it to generate headlines, keywords, tags. There are so many things.